Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the Transformational Space. This is Tony. I'm sitting here in my dining room as I'm listening to the mist and rain sprinkle outside the lanai. Grateful to be here this morning. I'd like to talk about grief as a utility in transformation. And I'm bringing this up because the process of grief is something that can be utilized in all aspects of our life. I know often we think about it in times when we have lost a loved one, or we have lost a relationship, or lost a home, or any of those things. And of course, it's quite relevant to all of those situations. But it can also be relevant to very small things that we might not think about it for. In instance, to use to separate from attachments to things and people and places. So I'm just going to give you a really brief background of the grieving process and the 5 steps that are involved, and we can kind of talk about how to utilize those in ways that are helpful for us to move on and transform within our lives. So the first step to the grieving process is what we call denial, meaning that some massive event happens or any event happens and we are not willing to accept that this has happened. So for instance, our house burns down, and although we know that our house is gone, we're in disbelief. And the second step is bargaining, coming up with ways on how we can make this not true. There's got to be another way to deal with the loss of my house. There's these things, there's got to be a way to fix this. There's got to be a way to change this, and trying to bargain with our mind, mostly because we know the reality of what's happened in ways of changing and creating a new way of being with this thing that happened. And then we find ourselves in anger and how could this happen to me? I'm so pissed that my things have been destroyed. And why is this happening to me? And who did this? And how did this happen? And then after spending a lot of time and energy being mad about the situation, which is exhausting, we become depressed. And I've heard of depressed being referred to in a separated form of deep rest and being very tired and upset and sad about what had happened. And how could we not be sad and need a lot of rest after being exhausted, thinking about all the things that we have lost, and potentially people and pets and irreplaceable items in a fire. And after being sad for some time, we find that rest and accept the fact that those things are no more, and we go on. And I think it's important to remember that that can happen in multiple stages, right? It doesn't have to happen all together. We can be in denial about what happened and be angry right away and then be exhausted. Or some of us will say, yeah, whatever, I'm moving on, and jump right to acceptance without having passed through these other places of grief. The emotion involved in each one of these is difficult, and for many of us who have learned to avoid emotional instances for reasons of being scared or fearful, we may want to bypass this and just move on and not process it, and this can lead to a number of different problems. Many of us have found ways to avoid feeling things, and when it comes to that, the first thing that comes to mind is addictive responses, whether that be substance abuse or sex or shopping or eating or anything that you can think of, exercise that you might do to avoid sitting with the feeling of what happened, because grief is all about emotion, right? It's all about moving through these different pieces of emotion that surround what just happened. And so it takes time. And it's not something that we can really rush because it happens as it happens. And letting that happen is the only way to really move through that. But understanding that can change the way we can use grief as utility. So I'm going to share with you a small story about how I used it more recently in my life that seemed very insignificant but was extremely helpful. When I first moved to Hawaii, my car was broken into and my backpack was stolen. And my backpack had all of my most important things: my computer, my wallet, my swimsuit, my favorite sandals, my Yeti cup, my lunch, everything that I needed and that was keeping me safe. And I was carrying all those things with me for a various number of reasons, being in a new place and wanting some comfort. And I came to my car and the window was broken. And right away I was like, no way, this can't be happening. I was only inside the gym for 30 minutes. And I was like, well, how am I gonna change this? How am I gonna fix this? I gotta make this, shift this right away. And I called the police and called the mall security and bargaining with them, right? Come on, find my things. I can see my credit cards being used in Walmart right up the street. Please do something about this. And of course, that's not the process, so I had to deal with that. And I was irate, just mad. Things weren't getting done fast enough. I had to go to work. I didn't have time to deal with this. And I got to work, and on my Find My Phone app, I had all of my electronics linked to my AirPods and my computer and such, and I was watching it furiously at work as I was trying to work with my clients. And I thought, I'm gonna go find my stuff when I get done. And I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just pissed, right? Like, I'm pissed that someone would do this. I'm pissed that someone has it. I'm pissed that I'm watching my things move around while I can't do anything about it. And I got done with work, and I went looking. Went, into Honolulu and started tracking my stuff, and so mad. And here I am by myself. It's dusk, right? And I run into a police officer, and I say, hey, I had my backpack stolen. I'm tracking my things right now. Can you help me? And she was so nice, and she said, I'll look with you for a minute. And she said, I just want you to promise me that if you do find your things, you're not going to approach the person who stole them, because it could be dangerous. I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. And she left, and I'm like, what am I doing? Approach some person who just broke into your car and stole your backpack, and you think you're going to do something about that? Like, this is all replaceable stuff, right? Like, this is ridiculous. So I went home. I was exhausted, and I went to bed. And the next day didn't really feel like doing too much. And day went on, and the next day went on. And I was just tired. And I was talking to my mom about it as I was sitting on the mountainside, thinking, this is just, I'm so bummed right now. And in that moment, I realized I was depressed. My important things and the safety in my life were all taken from me. And it meant a lot to me that those things were gone, and not just because they can be replaced, but it was the meaning around the stuff that I was carrying with me. It was a safety net for me. And it's an emotional situation when you have to work through fears. Rational, irrational, or irrational, doesn't really matter. It's real to you in the moment. And so I spent the rest of the day kind of trying to rest, and I got up the next morning, and I had this feeling of kind of lightness. Multiple people had reached out to me the day that my car was broken into. I was, after I talked to them, they said, oh, do you need any help? Let me help you. What can I do for you? Do you need anything? And I had this realization that I had a community of people that cared about me. And through this experience, losing things that made me feel safe, I now felt more safe because I had people that were there for me. And that for me was, in the end, more important than anything: the computer, the AirPods, the sandals, the swimsuit, all my stuff, right? My beautiful jewelry that someone had given to me. I don't know why I was carrying these things with me, but regardless, I now had a community instead of a bunch of things. So I was able to transfer that space that I needed safety into something else. And I accepted it. But today I see those sandals every now and then on someone else or in the store, and I'm pissed. Like, God damn it, those are my favorite sandals. I love those sandals. Um, and I use a pseudo Yeti cup today. That's fine, but it's not the same as the one I had, and bums me out sometimes when my smoothie gets warm. And what I'm trying to say here is that we don't grieve something and then it's gone. We don't just move on from it, how big or small it is. It's always a lived memory that's with us. And it just becomes easier to tolerate. I don't spend a lot of time on being angry about missing my sandals. It's just something I feel in the moment, and then it's gone. And big deal if my smoothie's a little bit warm around the edge. That's not that, it's not life changing. But I will say that when dealing with grief in a situation with friendship or lost loved one, I have spent years working through losing a good friend because I needed to take care of myself. I needed to step away from certain friendships, to be okay myself, and I had to accept that loss and go through that denial process of this person not being in my life because it was my choice. And every now and then I have memories attached to these people, and I see pictures, and there's a sadness sometimes, and then of course there's the acceptance that I'm in a better place because I made choices to move forward to take care of myself. But they don't have to go away. You don't make new friends and then just forget about the old friends. There's beautiful things about friendships that I've chosen to no longer have in my life. And so we get tossed into these grief stages now and then when things come into our life that are relevant to what we've gone through. But realizing this in the space of transformation is really important, right? Because through losing my backpack and grieving the things that I had inside, I was transformed into understanding that I have a community. And stepping away from friendships that were harmful to me helped me transform into self-care and being aware of how to build friendships that are rewarding to me and valuable to me, and with people that prioritize my time. And so utilizing the grieving process to move past things and let people come in and out of your life and lose things and gain things is a way to transform into a new place and transform into a new way of being by letting yourself go through that process. Yeah, it hurts, it's uncomfortable, but the reality is it doesn't last forever. And one of my favorite teachings from Buddhism is the lesson of impermanence, right? Nothing lasts, and nothing good, nothing bad. And so to be present for whatever is right now, because tomorrow is promised to no one. And as much as the past informs our present, the present is what we have. So I invite you to look at the grieving process in aspects of life when you're making change and allowing yourself to grieve what you're moving out of, or who you're moving away from, or the things you're letting go of, so that you can transform into a new space and place of being. So I hope this helps. It's been hugely beneficial to me, and I'll see you next time in the transformational space. Be well.